Welcome back, everyone, to J-Face Games. Today we are talking about powers. And with that, I'm going to try and talk about a couple things. I'm going to talk about example powers that I have here, and then some of my thoughts about overall where my idea for powers are going. So let's talk about that first. And you'll see that today I'm actually using my iPad to demonstrate some of this because I've been writing out all the powers thus far on my iPad in an app called Obsidian, trying to link everything. So first off, I think it's important to say that when it comes to the powers, I don't know if I want a ton of powers for a character to have. I don't think I want them having 20 powers or something along those lines. I think that somewhere around 8 to 10 is a sweet spot, because let's say we decide to use cards to represent powers. I could think of a character sheet with a tableau of 8 cards underneath it, or something like that. Or even on your character sheet, I don't know if I want more than 8 powers listed that you're going to be deciding which one am I wanting to do. Because I don't want to have cognitive overload. I don't want to have some sort of... I don't want people struggling to choose what they're going to choose, right? So, that being said, let's now look at what I've got here on paper, okay? So, I tried to organize these powers thus far by, first I went with roles, but it's not going to be organized by roles when it's all said and done. To me, that helped me just start to think in terms of what are the different sort of archetypes, what are the different roles that exist underneath these leadership, defender, striker, and controller. But then within that, I started thinking about, okay, what are the actual play styles, right? So you'll see that under this sort of general feats, I have this weapon proficiency. So let's go ahead and click on weapon proficiency. And this got me thinking, okay, well, what are the different type of weapon styles that you're going to see from a player? You're going to have one-handed, two-handed, dual wielding, short range, long range, shield, pole arm, thrown weapons, and then the different type of armors. And so I just wrote these down as proficiencies in terms of, okay, these are the different sort of play styles. So maybe the first thing you have to do is you have to get a power in that sort of play style, like a proficiency, right? It's like a checkbox to enter into the different ones. Now, I will say I might throw this away because besides the purpose of helping me define out the powers, does it really serve a purpose for the player? Like, do I want the player to feel like, I got to get this, proficiency that doesn't do anything but unlock other proficiencies? So the two choices there are A, you make these actually do something when you take them, or B, you get rid of them, right? So, but as of now, they're in place, sort of a standing in place, so that I have, so that I understand how to construct these powers, right? So now if we go back to feats and powers, let's go through an example of what one of these might look like in terms of a power tree of sorts, right? So you have striker, and under here I have range specialist. So to me, that's just defining out a archetype. And there's sniper versus scatter. Sniper hitting one individual target really well, or hitting multiple targets in an area. So if you go under scatter, I kind of term this volleying, right? Volleying being I'm going to spray a zone. And we've already talked about the zones. So if I look at volley, this is now the structure of how a power might look. Requirement that you have long-range attacking, which was one of the proficiencies. And another requirement being that you have a D6 striker dice. So now you can see how there are these needs within the different attributes. This striker ability has to at least be a D6. So condition, you're at least a long distance away from a zone, meaning you're not, short distance right side by side. You're not in the zone, you're not adjacent to the zone, you are a long distance away. It costs 1 action. There will be some sort of spark point cost. And then what you do is you target all creatures in that zone. Now I put all because it's important to note that means you're actually targeting your friends. You're actually going to target everybody. So you're just pepper spraying the entire zone, and you would be using your striker dice. And I also put at 1 dice step down. So technically, if you just had volley and you were a D6 striker, what you would do is you would use one of your actions, you'd spray everything in that zone, you would use a D4 attack dice on every target, right? If you had a D8 striker dice, you'd use a D6, etc. Now, what does that open up? What does that mean? Well, what that does is that if we come back to scatter, now you have superior volley and precision volley. Well, superior volley would be that it's the same concept. Now you have a striker die that's a requirement, and you have a volley that's a requirement. And it's in essence volley with a better dice, right? Superior volley is now you're using your normal, it should say your normal striker dice. It shouldn't say D6 striker dice, right? So now it's the same thing, but you are using the volley dice that you normally would have. Versus, let's say, if I do precision, now I'm still doing that step down dice. It should say step down dice, just like volley. But the idea is I'm choosing who I'm targeting in there, right? So now I don't have to hit my friends. Like there's a little bit of precision there. And then the last one you saw here was blanket volley, which it's all creatures, all zones. This is, like some sort of superior badass ability, because you've got a D10 striker dice. You're hitting, as long as there are zones that are long distance from you, you're hitting all zones, right? It probably has a magical component to it, I would say, but at this point in time, I thought it was cool. So that gives you an idea of what this might look like, right? So what are some other examples on here? Well, let's do cleave, right? So cleave, whoops, I don't have anything for cleave. Let's do, what's another one? I got pushy here. Pushy is in essence, I'll come up with better names for these. But this is a controller ability. You have a controller dice. You have to be engaged with an enemy, so they have to be touching you. You use an action, you can immediately make an attack on the target using your controller dice to hit. You push the target away from you, so you are no longer engaged with it. This also pushes the target away from anyone else who's engaged with that target, so it shoves them away, right? Now, the important thing is going to be, and this was another distinction in my brain, is I don't want people to feel like they have to have powers to do things, to be creative with their turns. And that's another trick, right? Where it's, I went on someone's turn that technically they could do a lot of this stuff. Not all of it, but technically they could, for instance, push a target away, even if they don't have the push feat, because it's a basic controller ability, right? Or say it's my turn and I want to push someone away and then attack them, right? Great, do it. I want you to be creative. I want you to still enjoy the game in those terms. But if you have the feats, you're more effective and efficient at it. Does that make sense? So maybe there's going to be a feat that allows you to shove someone with your shield and then attack with a sword, and it's only one action, right? Whereas if you're just a player, you could do that. It just costs you 2 actions to do it, right? The issue being, I hope it doesn't limit people's creativity that, oh, since I'm not as efficient at it as so-and-so, I'm not going to do it. And so, because I never want people to feel pigeoned completely into their play style, they could branch out if the narrative aspect of it is important. So I think that that's going to be where those RP actions and monster creations are going to come into effect, where it's maybe there are certain monsters that you want to push them away from you. Like, that's just the nature of it. Like, they got a lot of tentacles, they wrap around you if they're close to you, so trying to get distance is an important factor. And so now player, even if they're not proficient at it, they're not the best at it, they still want to do it. So hopefully this gives an idea of where some of these abilities are going. Here's Melee Commander. I had get out of the way. This is you are in a zone with a target that is also engaged. So this is now that engaged concept of I'm trying to free someone else up. You first engage that target and then your friend disengages. Boom. You quickly jump in and you get them out of there. All of you get out of the way. Same kind of idea. It's just all your allies now who were engaged are now disengaged. Everyone move. This is just an ability where all allies in your zone can use their reaction to make one move action, right? Basic ideas, but hopefully it's going to add a lot of flavor. Now, I like the idea that these have tech trees of sorts, because when I think about abilities, and I only want 8 powers per se for a character, the idea now becomes that volley is one of my powers, of my 7 or 6 or 8 powers. Once I get superior volley, I don't need volley on my chart anymore, right? I now have this one. And hopefully that feels like, okay, I've got my 8 abilities that I use. And because this is Skyrim-esque, I might have a sword and board ability, and then I have a volley ability or something, you know, and it's depending on what's happening, depends on how I'm going to flex and adapt my playstyle. So hopefully that gives an idea of where we're going with the powers thus far. I'm open to changing it and switching it around. I'm going to keep tinkering in and building out more powers, and we'll see what I think about this in terms of design. It's one of those balancing acts where you want it to make mechanical sense, but you don't want the game to become too mechanical in nature. So anyways, it's good to be back. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, leave some comments because I want to know what everyone's thinking. All right, see you guys.